one of the things we found that's been maybe an unexpected outcome of this, that we didn't think about at first, but it was kind of like, man, we really should have thought about this. Having our churches findable and a way to contact someone at the church has resulted in really wonderful opportunities for interactions with the community. So we've had other faiths putting together a barbecue, an interfaith barbecue, or there was a city in Alabama where they wanted to give the church an award for beautification of the community.
Oh, wow.
For the beautiful church grounds. How would they have gotten a hold of anybody before? They would have had to search and search and search and search. This particular building had a stake representative's phone number that they had sourced and put on there, and they were able to respond and have a great experience. So there's a lot of opportunity that exists to just be more a part of the community, especially for people searching for faith, but also for others.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Leading Saints podcast. And this is going to be a different topic, one that may be on the surface, doesn't seem that interesting, but as we get talking, you'll find that it's quite intriguing. The communications department at the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was kind enough to send Paul McHardy my way to talk about all things SEO related to the church. Now, what's SEO? It's search engine optimization. And so we talked generally at the beginning about just the church, how they're ranking in search engines, how they're getting positive, accurate information out about maybe tough questions or just our theology in general. And then even talking about the word Mormon and how that has impacted the church's communications department in getting our message out there. And then we do sort of a deep dive on as far as local listings of your chapel, my chapel, 19,000 chapels across the world, and on different platforms for everywhere from Google to Apple to Yelp, and making sure that if someone wakes up in the morning and feels a desire to connect with a local church, will they find our church, or how can we improve the likelihood of that result being found and them walking into our chapels? And even recently, if you've maybe noticed, the church chapels have shifted from being an Angel Moroni icon to just a cross icon. We talk about why that was and why that's needed. So a fantastic conversation with me and Paul McHardy, and one that I think you'll find quite intriguing. So here's my interview with Paul McHardy. Today I'm welcoming Paul McHardy from the church. Just generally from the church. You work for the church, right?
Yes, I do.
Nice.
I'm in the church communication department.
Awesome. And you are like the SEO guy. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I call myself the head of global SEO. It's not my official title,
Right.
but yeah.
And SEO is search engine optimization.
Mm-hmm.
So all things that go into, like when somebody Googles something or goes to a search engine of some type, hopefully they see what we would want them to see, right?
Yep, correct.
And how do you describe like your general scope of what you do or what you're trying to accomplish?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a daunting task, but I generally I'm kind of like an internal consultant, where there's lots of departments within the church that are creating content that would like their content to be found when people search for it. So I come in with an expertise of what are the basics that you do to have things show up in search, and then give them some recommendations, do some research for them. We also will come in with ideas for content to be created. So if there's content, a space where we're not appearing where we should, we'll go to a department and say, hey, there's an opportunity here if we created some content about this topic and did it in this way, then we could be in the conversation about that thing, like baptism, for example. Mm-hmm. Like maybe we aren't appearing in the first couple of results for that topic. Well, we could influence or create some content about that generalized topic so that we do show up and people can then be exposed to the church's doctrines and beliefs where maybe we weren't visible before.
Yeah. So someone may think, I wonder, am I supposed to be baptized? And they'll go to Google and they'll say, should I be baptized? And our hope is that obviously not all faith denominations or faiths in general believe in baptism, but maybe ours will pop up there and they'll at least understand that, yeah, we believe you should be baptized. Right,
exactly. I mean, most everybo's familiar with Doctrine and Covenants 132, and people are searching for truth
about polygamy, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But it's a whole new world than it was in the 1800s when that was revealed, and literally, like, try not to take too much of the weight, but like this is how people are searching, and I feel a very strong desire to help fulfill that, to help people who are searching for truth find it.
Do you feel like a lot of your work is sort of in that on the defense side of like, because there's so much information, so much misinformation about our beliefs or our history? Do you feel like a lot of your time is spent making sure, the accurate information showing up there, or what?
Yeah, we watch that stuff. So my direct report boss is the director of reputation management, and so we keep a pulse on, what are people talking about, what are the questions that are out there, and how can we positively influence places where there's maybe some more controversy or whatever it might be. There's limitations to what we as an organization are willing to discuss on the church's official website, but we also will partner with other organizations and say, hey, this is, maybe there's a platform or a topic that we aren't in a position to address right now, or the brethren have instructed us through revelation that this is not something we're going to do. And so we'll go to partners and say, maybe here's some things we're concerned about. Can you help for a positive influence in that space?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I have a confession, I guess, and maybe this shows the good work you're doing, because whenever I want to search something on churchofjesuschrist.org, I just go to Google and type LDS with the search term, and I usually find it on Church of Jesus Christ, because I don't know, did you hear that a lot? Is the search function kind of limited? And I get it, because on Leading Saints, if people want to find content about Leading Saints, our search function is just kind of limited too. And I tell people, just go to Google, type in Leading Saints, and then a topic. But
yeah, it's tough. So I work very closely with the product manager of the internal search product. We've made several changes over the course of, so I've been employed at the church for 3 years, a little over that. And so we've gone from different search engines to different products. We're looking at an AI product potentially, to try to improve that experience. We also have multiple domains that results will come up for like BYU speeches, for example. You can find those when you search internally. So there's different challenges, but the principles are the same. What you described is called a branded search because you typed in LDS.
Right.
Generally, we do fine in Google if you type LDS or any other Latter-day Saint or anything like that. It's more when you get in the more generalized space that we aren't as prominent in a lot of spaces. But yeah, it's not uncommon, but it is a known thing, and we are constantly trying to improve that, trying to influence. Maybe there's a talk from 1972 that's about a topic that President Nelson just spoke about, but because it's been on the website for so many years, it's what shows up first, both in Google and on the church website. And so we're making efforts to try to improve that, again, with some limitations because we're reliant on other products and their algorithms and all that stuff to serve up. We can't just say, show this first, show this second, show this third. But there's other things we can do, and we're constantly trying to improve that.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I'm summarizing these in the correct buckets here, but it seems like I mentioned, sort of that apologetic or the keeping tabs on like misinformation that's out there, and hopefully we're creating content that'll give the correct information. And then there's the like a missionary component of like, if somebody Googles baptism, we want to be in the listing and share a message. Are there any other buckets you'd say as far as SEO goes, or?
So there's just broad Christianity as a whole. The principles of Christ's teachings. There's lots of sites that talk about the teachings of the Bible. The teachings of Christ. And there are some spaces where we do rank well for certain topics. Our scriptures, for example, there's a lot of highly searched scriptures in Psalms or Proverbs or the New Testament. And some of those we rank for and some of those we don't. So we could do a little bit.
So someone's just looking for a Bible reference and they'll come to our gospel library.
Yeah. So they'll, and we look at it as a marketer, search engine optimization being a marketing function generally outside of our organization, is to expose your organization to someone who's unfamiliar with you so that they can look to you as an authority and someone they can trust. And so as somebody finds our scriptures or finds our website through a search, whatever it might be about us specifically or about Christianity or just about God, and they come to our website, read, feel the Spirit, they then will potentially look to us again when they have more questions, and hopefully will be led down a path where they can find the gospel truths.
Yeah. And this is interesting, because I think of like Bible Hub, right? That'll come up a lot for scripture if you just do a generic Bible reference. But does like the Catholic Church have a department like we do, or I don't know, the some evangelical churches have this? Or?
I mean, I can't speak to everybody. There's a few faiths that do have a more organized approach.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing and the unique thing for the church is that we are an organized, centralized global organization. We have the prophet, the apostles, and we have basically a unified message, whereas a lot of other faiths are under a denomination, but it's different congregations and they're not connected necessarily. So the church's website is actually extremely authoritative. There are certain tools that we look at that talk about your domain authority, how like Google being the #1 domain authority site because people go there all the time. And then, different news sites or Wikipedia. Wikipedia is actually the site we compete with the most in search, where there'll be a topic about the church or a topic we are connected to, and it's Wikipedia, then us, and then other stuff.
That's what you lose sleep over, right? Like, I
yes,
gotta get them.
Yes, it's difficult. But, so long story short, the church's website is really authoritative because of a large demographic that's going to one website that goes there consistently, and returns there a lot. And so, that's not really how we view it. We don't like to view it that way anyway.
Right.
Like in a typical marketing sense, those are your competitors. We don't see it that way.
Yeah.
But we do want to make sure that the message that we have to share is out there. And, we actually tend to rank for things that we have no business ranking for, because we haven't really implemented good SEO practices. But because the church's website is so authoritative, we do show up.
So what's an example of something we don't want to rank for?
Oh, I mean, we show up for like children's coloring pages or just,
okay.
or pictures of a grassy field and some image that's on our website will show up. I mean, it's not bad to show up for that stuff, but, it's not necessarily something we're looking to show up for. The church's website literally ranks for millions of keywords just in English in the United States alone. So yeah, I mean, we're not always on the first page, but again, because of that authority, we tend to show up in a lot of places.
Yeah. Just from that general SEO and the work you do, like if you're speaking to a room full of church leaders, like what do they need to know about that dynamic? Or like, because there's members in their ward that are maybe searching there, and that obviously maybe they're worried, if you go to Google and just search, like, don't do that, when in reality maybe you'll find some good content that way. I mean, any general advice as far as the SEO goes that you'd give to church leaders?
Yeah, that's tough, because I mean, it's not necessarily something they can always influence, right? So I think the same counsel that would go into anytime you're exposed to any information, you look at it with a discerning eye, and especially with the Spirit. So a lot of times, so here's a good example. Amazon Alexa, your kid's sitting at home and they want to play some music, and they'll say, "Hey, play me songs about the Book of Mormon." And Amazon, Alexa says, "Okay, Book of Mormon musical." And then it starts playing songs from the Book of Mormon musical. Probably not what you would want your kids to be listening to. But that may be what comes up. So, especially with assistants and AI, people will look at that as like, or just ask a general question. Hey, Alexa, what do Mormons believe? I'm probably setting off people's Alexas at home, so sorry. What do Mormons believe? And then it'll give the answer, and they're like, "Oh, okay, that's the definitive. This is what Mormons believe." So that's really challenging, and that's honestly the most difficult space to influence, because like in that example, that's usually the Wikipedia answer, and Wikipedia is a whole different ball game that we aren't even really touching currently, because it is just so big.
Wow.
I once crawled Wikipedia trying to find all the stuff about the church, and I couldn't finish the crawl. It was just millions and millions of Wikipedia articles. So yeah, just, people tend to look at the answers they get from especially smart assistants, but when they go to Google and that result that they see, or that little featured snippet that shows up first with a little paragraph answering their question as the authoritative answer. And, Google has some self-interest in giving a good experience and trying to be reliable, but in reality, Google is interested in making money. And so they will do what they need to do, and to accomplish that mission. And it's not always, truth isn't always the best option for them. or fully representing accuracy when somebody asks something about us, letting us answer as opposed to someone else giving their opinion. So
yeah. And a lot of people may not really, I mean, we think Google because it's just such the behemoth, but I mean, you've in your chair, you got to worry about, like YouTube, which is owned by Google, but is the second largest search engine, right? And things are going to show up differently there. And then obviously Yahoo and Bing and all those Ask Jeeves, I don't know, but, but there's just all sorts of, and, TripAdvisors and things like that. So before we move on from the general topic, I'm curious, like, how do you sense the admonition from President Nelson to avoid using the term Mormon, describing us and things like that? That's made your job a little complicated, to say the least? Or
so I gratefully came in after that, because I can't imagine the stress I would have been under, and those who preceded me, the stress that they were under considering that. As comforting as it would be to have the prophet saying this is something the Lord wants us to do, it's still difficult to say, man, how do we do this? We worked with a fairly large, experienced agency who very strongly recommended not to do this, which is what President Nelson was referring to. And after this, several years after, we actually asked them to go back and evaluate that and say, hey, how are we doing? And what we found through the analysis is that Google figured it out, right? Like, we leaned in and removed those references and used the language that President Nelson asked us to use, and found that Google now knows that Mormon and LDS and Latter-day Saint and Church of Jesus Christ, those are the same terms. And when you Google one of them, we will show up. Yeah. Now, whether or not we fully, specifically about the search term Mormon, whether or not we fully are as present, like maybe we showed up 4 times in the results and now we only show up once, we're looking to dig in deeper on that. But generally speaking, the aftermath is that Google figured it out, and the church's domain now is, I actually did specifically look at this, the authority of the site and how well are we ranking, and the overall technical health of the site as a whole is better off. Which after we finished that, it actually was very faith promoting for me, being able to take my profession and apply it to my faith and have a confirmation of the prophetic leadership of the brethren through my job. Yeah. So it was really cool.
Oh, that's awesome. So the typical scenario, let's say, or hypothetical, is someone wakes up and they're just, it's Sunday morning. They feel lost in life, a little depressed. They think, I need church in life. So they pull out their phone and say, church is near me. Now we hope, and we have chapels everywhere, it seems like. I think you mentioned before, like 19,000 chapels, yes. 19,000 chapels across the world. We would hope that we would be in their results so they could buzz down the street and join us for sacrament meeting. So maybe start unpacking this as far as like maps and navigation and having people walk in and read that, visitors welcome, and say, this is it. I'm going in because I'm welcome here. Like, where do we start with that discussion?
Yeah. So, I mean, you described it really well. That is very much one of the 2 main focuses of this effort that we have been undertaking. This is called local search. It's a practice within SEO, or local search optimization, where we're focused on listing services and map services and navigation services. And there are some unique principles in that field of how to rank well within one of those. And yeah, that exact scenario. And honestly, I even look at it as more of like maybe it's a Tuesday, and they had a bad experience last Sunday, or they had something happen to them during the week, and they're planning for their weekend and say, hey, this weekend I gotta get to church. So we just want to give the best opportunity for people in that boat, as well as our members, right? Not everybody necessarily always goes to the church's website, to the Meeting House Locator tool, which is a great tool. But there's more barriers to get to the tool than just a Google search, like you described earlier. Like, I just go and click, search on Google, and then it gives me the result. So we're just trying to reinforce that experience as well as reach a broader audience. So as people make those searches, again, if they search for us specifically, we generally show up. Now, whether or not the information on those listings has always been the most accurate information, not just the location, but maybe there's a phone number, or when are we open, that type of stuff. So Google will just create a listing. Like anybody out there can go to Google and say, hey, this is where my favorite chicken place is, and it's not listed, so I'm going to suggest to create this business here. So anybody can do that, and lots of the listings that have been out there historically for the church are exactly that. A good but small percentage of locations were maybe a local clerk or a stake president or somebody like that said, hey, we got to make sure our building's visible. And so they manage it locally, but the rest are just essentially an unmanaged listing. So, whether or not people are getting the best experience when they find us, when they look for us specifically, was kind of up in the air. But also when they're not looking for us specifically, when they're looking for faith or God or Christianity or whatever, we would like to be in the conversation and be a consideration for them. So we've approached this local search effort more with the latter in mind, of the exactly what you described. I want to go to church on Sunday, and tried to approach our local search optimization to that broader audience so that we show up with the other, potentially many other options for church. Almost 100% of all searches end with a click on one of the first 10 results that they get. 65+% end with one of the top 3. So if you're not in the top 10, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you're not in the top 3, you're fighting for peanuts, right? And so we really need to show up as high as we can. These searches for a location, it's using all sorts of data to try to give you the best option. So if you say near me, it's literally going to look like within a mile, unless it has to look further to find more options for you. And so there's a lot of complicated things that go into appearing. You could do a search from where you're sitting and go outside across the street and do another search and potentially get totally different results. But we're just trying to do the best we can to make sure all of our buildings are visible, are findable, the information's accurate, and that if somebody makes a more generic search, that we will have more potential to show up when they do that.
And other than Google Maps, I mean, because there's even like TripAdvisor and some of these that are more geographically focused, like search engines, right? Who are the big players that you're?
Yeah, so Google, obviously, Waze uses Google's data. Apple Maps, which a lot of
is
people
Apple
just
Google's
have.
data, or they have?
No, they have their own.
Okay.
And so we have to look at them too. You described some of the other big players. Facebook is actually the third biggest, where not a lot of people necessarily think, if I'm going to map something, I'm going to go to Facebook, but having a presence there sort of reinforces the building's location, the information about it. Facebook's product has changed a lot over the years as to what they call it and how they treat it, but it's essentially a store location is what they call it. And so just having the same address and phone number and hours information there as well is another key one.
Now, when we think about Facebook, like many leaders may be listening, like, oh, I got to make sure my chapel's listed on Facebook. Like, are you handling all that? So it's not like local wards need to go through the list and make sure they're listed. That's what.
So we're utilizing a platform that allows us to manage the data in one place for a building. And then depending on the geographical location, this tool is connected to over 190 different listing services, everywhere from the Googles all the way down to something you've never heard of, to the yellow pages, all those different services. And so that they're all getting the same data, and you're not having to go to every single one of those to update it every time. Much, much more efficient. So we definitely don't need that. The other thing I would say about Facebook specifically is that even as we do this, we're not looking for this to be a social community type of listing. It's just an information page. So if anybody does come across one of these Facebook listings, there's not a lot of them out yet, for that phone number reason, which we can talk about a little bit. But it'll just be the information about the building, and then basically the Facebook feed of the church's official account. Yeah.
Now, recently there's been we used to have an Angel Moroni type of logo for the map listing, but that's shifted to a more generalized Christian cross logo, right? Yep. What's the background there? Anything to say there?
Yeah, so this is specific to Google. This wasn't found anywhere else. But yeah, especially along the Wasatch Front, it was a significant shift. So we would get a lot of questions globally about this, where people are like, nobody knows what this thing is. Can you just change it? The answer at the time was no. We don't even know why. Like literally, we don't know why.
Like at some point, did someone from the church like send this logo to Google and like use that, or did they?
No idea.
Okay.
Google, if you're listening, please, if you have information as to why this ever happened. So I was very curious about this. Working with this software platform, our representatives there, we asked. We said, "Hey, do you have any idea why this is the case?" They didn't know. It's not like you Google McDonald's and there's an M over there,
or the arches.
All the restaurants, all fast food restaurants generally have the same PIN. You can actually pay. You can get an ad now and pay. Like Walgreens will have that, but yeah. So I just said I'm gonna figure this out. Okay, so and I went into it just trying to figure out why, and then the other thought that came to me was, is there an effect? We know there's an anecdotal effect that, especially outside of the United States, they don't know what this means. And so if we did come up in a search for a Christian church, they see this person holding, I don't know what, this silhouette, and they're like, I don't know what that is. I'm not going to go there. Again, another barrier we would like to remove to be in consideration. So I actually did an analysis of all the categories for Google Maps. I found a list. This has probably changed since then. It was over 500-600 different categories you could pick from, like every type of restaurant food, Thai food, Chinese food, Mexican food, all that stuff.
And they all had their own icon, or
not necessarily, but these are a category that you can select. So if you own a business, you go to set up your location on Google Maps and you say, I'm a Mexican food restaurant. You can select Mexican food restaurant, but then you'll just get the restaurant logo.
Right.
So I found all the religious ones. I then narrowed it down to all the Christian religion ones. And then I went and Googled every single one of those to see what would show up on their PIN. So there are 51 at the time, 51 Christian denomination categories. 50 of them have a cross, and one of them had a unique logo.
Some Angel Moroni character.
Angel Moroni thing.
Yeah.
So as I saw this, I thought, well, okay, we are a peculiar people. We're different. We feel like we have a unique message and a unique thing to bring to the world. So maybe that's good. But the other thought that came to me, and I felt that this was a prompting personally, was not only do people not know what this is, but maybe there's an actual data effect of having this difference. And with approval of the leadership, we selected a small group of locations that we switched from the category that has Moroni is Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. And we switched about 250 buildings from that to Christian church as the category, which as a result changed those to the cross. Again, that's not why. The cross is not why we picked it. It's just Christian church category. And what we found was about a 25% increase in visibility to those locations after about 3 months for generalized Christian search terms. So from that, my analysis was that we are being hindered being visible in that category for whatever reason, because of that. And because we now have, through this effort that we're doing, all of our buildings, instead of Magna 5th Ward or Phoenix 4th Ward or whatever, the pins now say the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and often in language, wherever it may be. We felt okay saying, okay, well, we don't need the category to say that again. So we can have the name of the church, select this other category that increases our visibility, and move forward. And so with that, we went back to leadership and said, hey, we feel like this is a good opportunity for us to increase the exposure and findability of our chapels. And we were approved to change all buildings to that, which we did about a year and a half ago. I had to switch some of them back. So if you went and looked for LDS churches, in a high concentrated area of buildings, you may still find Moroni out there somewhere, and temples and a lot of other locations, church office buildings, things like that still have Moroni. But a lot of them are shifting. Even seminaries and institutes will no longer have Moroni. They've selected a religious school as their category, for example. And as we expand the management of those listings, that'll change as well. So
yeah. And then so with temples, though, I mean, I guess this comes down to, it'll give you, like, if someone found a temple, or they even see the temple, like, oh, that's a religious building, I'm going there on Sunday. Like, is there? How do you handle that? Or
Yeah, I mean, that's always kind of been a little bit
Yeah.
of an issue, right? Like people not understanding the difference between our chapels and our temples.
Mhm.
And so it's just, you can put in the description that, visit the website. We say, hey, visit the website to find out more about this,
Right.
rather than say, come. Whereas on the chapels, the description on the listing does say, come join us for worship.
So this isn't some like we're going to start seeing crosses on our buildings or anything. It's just that's a data point of like,
Yeah, I mean,
let's make a tweak there.
We are a Christian faith.
Right.
All other Christian faiths, you could go select Seventh-day Adventist or Methodist or Wesleyan or whatever, and they all, just by picking that category, have the cross.
And even sometimes we get grouped in with like Jehovah's Witnesses, sort of
They have
like
a cross.
but they get the cross too. So
Yep.
we're just in the same tent,
Yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
I'm good with it. So nice. What about just like, so we talk about, I remember in the 90s, I could pick up my phone, I could dial a number, and the clerk's office would ring, and I could talk with the clerk if he happened to be in there, right? And I remember as a bishop, I was a bishop in 2011 to 2016, and we had a phone in the clerk's office, and every once in a while it would ring and be like, hello, like,
Yeah.
who's there? So, but now, I mean, because that phone, are the phone numbers listed on, if somebody finds a church, I want to go there Sunday, I'm going to call this number.
Yeah, so that's been a bit of a challenge, right? Because what you just described, the church recognized years ago that these phones are underutilized. People, in the advent of the cell phone, everybody's got a phone in their pocket. And especially if somebody were to call a number, they now expect you to answer. Or
have
probably text you, really,
or a voicemail or something.
Something, right?
Yeah.
And I remember as a kid sitting in the hall, right, and the hall phone rings, and you kind of look around like, are you gonna get it? I'm not gonna get it. Like, and they'll just ring into oblivion. So, so the church actually, at least in North America for sure, and as I've talked with, the department that manages those, they've sort of sunsetted all internal phones for the most part, at least, especially the hall phones. A phone number is a vital piece of your visibility in local search. Not only just, hey, we want to be able to contact someone, but it is a ranking factor. So if you don't have a phone number, that hurts the weight Google or other search engines will give you. In fact, some won't even let you list. Apple will not let us do managed listings without a phone number on the listing. So, if we don't have a phone number for a building, we don't have a managed Apple listing for that yet. So with all those numbers now having been removed, even if we were to put a number back, it would need to be some sort of a solution that goes to a phone that somebody's going to actually answer.
Could you do a generalized number that goes to the church office building or something? Or?
We have explored a lot of options.
Okay.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah.
So this whole process of this local search effort, we went through a 3.5-4 year pilot. We started with 1,200 locations, and by the end of the pilot, we had 3,500. And we did it across, all over the United States in other English speaking areas. Just pilots we tend to default to the English just to test it out. And then it translate beyond that. But, all over the world, the Pacific, Europe, places where we could in Africa, and a couple of other places where we had these buildings that we had in the pilot. At the time, we used the missionaries' phone numbers, so the missionaries that were assigned to that building. Now, that's a whole, every mission now manages phones a little bit differently. So there's no like set in stone guarantee that the number is going to stay in that area, for example, as opposed to when I served my mission, and I won't say when, it was our apartment phone number that never left.
Yeah. And
so it's a little bit easier then, but things are different now. So, and as we expanded, just generally because of that complication, there wasn't a full comfort with just blasting all the missionary phone numbers out on these listings. And so we've had to find another solution. So in some places, the phone number on a listing that you find may go to the missionaries. In some cases, we have now, essentially this project it's not a calling, but it is a responsibility that has been added to existing callings, usually a state communications specialist, where those exist. That's not everywhere in the world, or somebody else, preferably at the stake level, who is kind of helping us with this, because this is a local effort and we need somebody local who knows stuff about each building. So where a phone number exists, it may go to them, it may go to the missionaries. Some other regions of the world are utilizing maybe an area office or meeting house facilities representative or something like that. But there are plenty of listings that don't have a phone number right now, and we're actively seeking a long-term solution.
Because on some platforms, you need a phone number in order to even show up.
So Apple, Facebook, pretty much right now, the main platforms we are actively managing all of the locations is Google and Waze.
Gotcha.
Everybody else we're not currently opted into because we can't. And as we find solutions for phone numbers, we're seeking, locally crowdsourced, like Google Voice was an option, but there's many limitations to Google Voice. It's free, but there's caveats for a lot of North American locations. San Francisco, for example, there are no more Google Voice numbers. They've all been taken. Yeah,
Holy cow.
Is what we didn't know and found out. So. So just not really a sustainable solution. The church does have a voice over IP product, but there's costs associated with that. And we're trying to figure out if that's a solution. Is it a stake funded thing? Can we provide funding globally for this? It's not crazy expensive, but every church leader knows that budgets can be tight. So asking just one more thing to be paid for out of that budget can be very difficult. And we don't want to do that.
Yeah.
But anyway, for now, we're just we want so much for our buildings to be findable for those who are seeking that we don't have phone numbers, and eventually we will. We will. What that will be is to be determined.
Yeah. So someone may notice like, oh, my chapel isn't showing up on Facebook, and that may just simply be because there's no phone number, and they won't let us post list chapel.
And Facebook's the same as anything else where somebody could have created a listing long ago.
And has an old phone number.
Yeah, and as we do this, what we're trying to make efforts to find those pre-existing listings, consolidate them to an authoritative listing, so there isn't conflicting data out there.
So where's the intersection of lay leaders, members with the work you do? I mean, like for example, I've heard we've had various people talk about the benefit of leaving a review on your chapel or when you go to the temple and things like that. I mean, do you like to see that happen from your point of view?
Yeah, we're not actively soliciting or creating campaigns to do this. Any review should be organic, and any indication that it's not can actually be worse for any organization.
So if you send a letter out and said, read this to your ward, everybody must leave a review, and Google's like, what's going on here? Right?
There'd be some perception issues with that as well. But these services that accept reviews, if they can see that you're gaming the system, you go to Amazon and you're reading the reviews on a product and it's clear that a template has been used or was paid for this review, you don't value it as much. And so they don't really want that, and you'll get dinged for that.
Yeah.
So if people would like to leave a review, that does help search results, and that's great. But ultimately, we're not actively soliciting that. Now, that said, part of this effort, as we're integrating and working with these stake representatives and others, is that this platform we use, reviews from all these listing services come into this platform and can and will be responded to through the platform. So so not only receiving reviews is good, but interacting with the reviews. These listing services like to see that you're engaged with your audience, and so by responding, it shows that you care that somebody left a review, positive or negative. And so it's a great thing from a search engine optimization standpoint. As well as then, if somebody has a legitimate concern, we would want to be able to address it. And maybe the sprinklers are getting left on and it's been raining for 2 weeks. Okay, great. How else are we going to find that out without a phone number or whatever? But yeah, so there is an element there. But ultimately, from the as we've been working, so I personally have been conducting trainings. We're fully trained and rolled out in the United States and Canada. In Asia, in Asia North, in the Pacific area, we're working with representatives in Europe and Africa and South and Central America at different levels of this rollout of training people how to use this system. But then we have somebody at the stake level. Some people may not be aware of this these levels above the stake. I didn't until fairly recently, that there's a coordinating council that will meet with the area president and others, and then we have the the actual area offices where there's people who are, focused on communication, for example. And so there's a support system within there where we're training people at each level to know, the best practices on how to do this, how to use the tool itself, how to respond to a review in an appropriate way. And then just working together to, get feedback from each other if there's a challenging review or, whatever it might be.
Or a troll. I mean, trolls exist.
Yes,
right?
for sure.
They just put a -1 just because.
I see all of those, by the way. I get every single one in my email. So that's
nice.
Yeah.
How does this, well, so when somebody searches and finds like my local building and I think there's 4 wards that meet in my building, are they going to see every start time, whether it's 8:30, 9, 9:30 or?
Yeah. So the listing itself is focused on a physical location. So it's not focused on a congregation or congregations.
Right.
And each listing also now has an associated web page on the church's website, where, again, it's a part of the local search play is to have a page on your website that reinforces the data on the listing.
Gotcha.
But additionally, that page is where that data will potentially be housed. Now, again, it depends on whether or not we've trained and gotten somebody to update the data there and to make it accurate. But as we continue this process, which, may take the rest of the year and maybe even into next year to do this, there'll be varying levels of completeness of the information. But yeah, so that's where that information will be. The hours on the listing itself are just like open close. It's not specific meeting times.
Oh, okay.
But yeah,
but they can click on the website option, which will take them to this page. They'll have the name of the ward or the wards.
And even the web pages themselves are positioned as more of a broader thing. So we're generally trying to use more common terminology: congregation, worship service, not Melchizedek priesthood or Relief Society or whatever, just so people can relate. And so, so I managed the buildings in my stake as I was learning the tool and creating this training for these folks worldwide, so that I could make sure I was being reasonable with what we were asking them to do and didn't want to overburden them. So for my buildings in Eagle Mountain, Utah, I put first worship service, parentheses, the ward name. Okay. Because it's more relatable maybe in Utah and less foreign, but in other places we've said, hey, maybe that's not, maybe that's a little more confusing. They won't understand what ward or branch means. So just use more common language. So first worship service starts at 9, second worship service starts at 10:30, that type of thing. Yeah. So yeah.
And most Latter-day Saint members, I mean, they're trained to go to the meeting house locator, or at least would you recommend that people go there if they're just looking for a local ward? Or?
Yeah. So the big thing about this particular project is in time, we hope to be able to create a data sync between these two systems so that there's consistency. There's some challenges that we ran into between the meeting house locator being a custom tool that we can hone to do what we want. And then there's these public listing services that have rules about addresses and all this other stuff. And when we tried to just feed the data out, they said, hey, you got a bunch of errors. Like, maybe you don't have the right data point in the right data field. And, it's this validation process. So we've had to manually set all of this up within the software platform. But we hope to be able to feed meeting times to these web pages eventually, so that as clerks make these updates in the church's database, it just updates.
Just triggers everything.
Yeah. So long term, we hope it'll be a lot more automated, and then those who are participating in the management of these listings can focus more on the human element of the responding to people as they contact us, responding to reviews, and not have to deal with the data stuff. Yeah. But for now, it's a little bit manual.
Yeah. And there may be some who think, like, what's Meeting House Locator? But it's in the Tools app now, right? Yeah. There's a link to it, or you can go to maps.churchofjesuschrist.org.
Yeah, and they'll have, right? If you're logged in, you can get the bishop's phone number to call, and I'm sure they love that.
I want to know, like, who in the church, like, let's put the bishop's phone number on there. And every bishop's like, all right, give him a fake number, or like, here's my Google Voice number. I don't know. There seems like a million other people we could maybe list there.
Yeah, I know. And specific to this, my piece of this project, we specifically do not want a bishop's phone number on here. They've got enough to do.
Right.
There may be calls that come that will be brought to maybe an agent bishop, like a welfare assistance request or something like that. But we would prefer to have somebody else kind of running interference there. I mean, anytime you put a phone number on publicly, you're going to get a lot of spam and solicitations and whatever. So we definitely don't need that. But yeah, even just in the past year on the church's homepage, there's a kind of a newer, more friend approached church finder experience that again kind of presents the same data as Meeting House tools, but more for somebody who may not know what ward they're in or care what ward they're in, for example.
Yeah. And then as far as going back to times, like, because typical business, we're open Monday through Saturday, 9 to 9, whatever. I mean, because it doesn't just show that being open when church is happening, right? So how does that work?
Yeah. So on on the listings, we've opted to show open times as regular business hours, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. On all listings globally, with variations on Sunday more tailored towards the actual meeting times, and then indicating on the listing that Monday through Saturday is by appointment only. So call us.
Oh, okay.
But that's another local, kind of a local search optimization type of thing, where if it's Tuesday at 3:00 in the afternoon and I'm considering finding Christ in my life, and I go looking for a church, if we're not open, just like if you're hungry and you want some tacos and the taco truck isn't open, Google's not going to serve up that listing if it says it's closed. So we're trying to not appear closed, but at the same time indicating to people like don't just show up, right? Because nobody's probably there. So give us a call, and that one reason why we really have missionaries have really expressed who have been able to receive these calls. We love it because somebody will say, "Hey, I want to learn something about you guys, but it's Wednesday afternoon,"
and they're like,
"Great, I would love that on my mission," right?
Yeah.
Just trying to get them to make a call first.
Yeah, because there's a lot of traditional Christian churches that the pastor has his office there, it's his full-time gig, and the door will probably be unlocked, right?
So we just want to help again, especially the friends of the church or people who are trying to find their new faith, give them an experience they're already familiar with. We're again peculiar people. We function differently. We're not we don't build a chapel and then go gather a flock. We gather a flock and then build a chapel, right? So so we kind of have to approach it a little bit different, utilizing common principles of the way maybe a business might be run, when we don't typically operate that way.
Interesting. Any other questions, topics I should be asking, but I'm not thinking of? Or
I think the one thing I would just mention is, as we kind of got approved to roll this out globally, this was late 2022. Amongst the many letters that church leaders get, we did send out a letter just saying, "Hey, this is coming in your area. Just be aware of this and support it." So we've had, and it got lost in the fray for a lot of folks. I even asked my own bishop if he saw it, and he's like, "I don't know what you're talking about." So, but we sent it to all ecclesiastical leadership so that they might be familiar with when some random person from the stake who's not a clerk comes and says, "Hey, I need information about the building. When are your meeting times?" Stuff like that. Or, maybe it's January 15th and it still hasn't been updated and they're trying to figure out when the new meeting times are, just so that there's some awareness. But we recognize that maybe not everybody saw that. So we've had, the occasional area president who doesn't know what this is, or, a stake president or whatever. They're just like, who are you? Especially to me, when I randomly will contact them about something. Who are you and what do you want? But just know that like this is an approved church program, project that we're working on. It was approved by the first presidency, and they feel that it's a great opportunity to increase the findability of the restored gospel. And so as best as you can, and as you don't necessarily need to proactively go out there and seek out assisting a stake communications specialist, for example. But, as they come or as they attend your council meetings, just to be aware that it's going on. And we have given them the ability to access data about the locations they're managing, or they could share reviews that they're seeing, or different things like that. It would be a great opportunity for leadership to just kind of be more aware of some of the things that are going on, as well as the many other things they're doing, but knowing that somebody else is handling the grunt work, but then they can potentially see some of the benefits of that. One of the things we found that's been maybe an unexpected outcome of this, that we didn't think about at first, but it was kind of like, oh man, we really should have thought about this. Having our churches findable and a way to contact someone at the church has resulted in really wonderful opportunities for interactions with the community. So we've had other faiths putting together a barbecue, an interfaith barbecue, or there was a city in Alabama where they wanted to give the church an award for beautification of the community.
Oh, wow.
For the beautiful church grounds. How would they have gotten a hold of anybody before? They would have had to search and search and search and search. This particular building had a stake representative's phone number that they had sourced and put on there, and they were able to respond and have a great experience. So there's a lot of opportunity that exists beyond what we might obviously think about through all of this, to just be more a part of the community that, especially for people searching for faith, but also for others. They don't necessarily care that we're a global church. People who attend a church in their community are looking for exactly that, a community of those who share common principles and values and beliefs. And great, we're a global church, but I care about where I'm going to go, where I'm going to take my family, and knowing that those are people that I can connect with. And that's how they feel the Spirit in their lives. And so being more visible to those people through natural ways of how all of us go throughout our everyday life, just looking up somewhere to go for whatever.
Yeah.
The more we can kind of meet them where they're at, the better. And this is a really great opportunity to do that.
And so it's not necessarily like, I'm just thinking leaders wondering, well, am I in compliance? Did I miss that letter? Was there something my clerk was supposed to do? Like, there's nothing like that.
This was just an awareness letter.
Okay.
And it was kind of indicated as that. So like, it wasn't like a go and do. We did get those who were really proactive and were like, great, let's do it. And at the time we actually weren't quite ready. Like we were like, hey, this is coming. So we're grateful for those as well. But this was just hey, at some point in the near future, this is an effort we're going to undertake. So as much as you can, whenever necessary, just support those who are helping us with this.
Yeah. Or if they notice there's no phone number, they don't need to figure out a way to get a phone number. Right. And really, you talk about interfaith, just recognizing you're on the map and try and build interfaith bridges elsewhere, or help the community know that you exist other ways, right? Let's not just put all our chips on Google searches or things like that, but there's many ways that we can just create awareness of our chapels and that, you're welcome.
19,000 buildings globally, that's a monumental footprint. Yeah. And, it's not insignificant. It'd be great to be able to, for people to know that it's there.
Nice.
So.
Very cool. Well, we'll have, a little bit more appreciation when we're searching on Google and something pops up and like, Paul did it.
Something's wrong. Know the guy. So let me know.
Exactly. Well, the last question I have for you is just as you've been in this role for what, 2 years now?
A little over 3. Yeah.
3 years. Okay. Mm-hmm. Working day to day, for the church, and it's something that feels maybe on the surface seems so minute or really, but can be so important in the long run. Like, what has this experience working for the church done for your faith and as a disciple of Jesus Christ?
Yeah, I've had job offers at the church come my way over the years through friends or just, other colleagues I've had in the past, and it wasn't the right time for me. It was a big decision for me to choose to combine my profession with my faith, and could I handle that? I mean, the organization of the church it's like a business. It runs, and it's a very slow moving business. We by design are very deliberate about decisions that are made. A lot of considerations are made. A lot of people couldn't work in an environment like that. Some people have equated it to government, though I don't like the association, but in reality, I mean, it's decisions are made by committees. They go through several committees, things like that. So, and I knew some of this going in, and I learned way, way more than I ever thought I would. But, so I was concerned about how could it possibly affect my faith, having to kind of tie these two worlds together. But the reality is that it has been, an amazing amazing opportunity to, some days I'll go in and it's just like I'm going to work like I've always done for, however many years I've been working. And then other days, I feel the Spirit throughout the day. It's not just like, let's start the meeting with a prayer, but it's literally like, I feel like I'm being guided, and I recognize that I'm connecting something that I have found a passion in with helping the Savior reach people. And I try not to take I try not to treat my job like a calling, because it's not. It's a job, but it's really cool and has really helped me grow. And I definitely feel that my faith has expanded, and my what you put in affects how you're able to affect people as you put yourself out there. I felt more connected, not just with my faith, but more inspired to fulfill my calling, to recognize that the value of all of God's children, as I've had wonderful opportunities to meet with people literally all over the world, which I've never done before, and just the gospel's the same, and it's true everywhere, no matter what your culture, no matter what your background, no matter what you've believed before. That it affects all of us the same way, because God speaks to the soul.